Hello! And anyone else who may be watching from home, my name is Zanzolo, also known as Mr. Borges, and we're back in Scratch for our next project, which is going to be the Maze Challenge. So, for a description of the assignment and everything that you need to have, you can always look in either Canvas, if we're using Canvas or Google Classroom, depending on which one we're using this year. And you can also find it in the Scratch Studio comments for Lockett Middle School's studio for this school year, whichever school year you happen to be in right now. All right, so Maze Challenge. I'm going to show you the example of what's going on with the Maze Challenge. We're going to talk about the different pieces that your project needs to have. You need to have a better title than Untitled. Of course, you need to have instructions. I'm going to go ahead and click the green flag so you can see. I've got this sprite right here. This happens to be a little crab and a maze that I've drawn on a backdrop. So we're going to talk about that. My maze has a place to start and a place to finish, although you don't have to label those specifically. I do want you to have something, a second sprite that's at the end, at the goal of your maze, and a sprite that moves through your maze. So my crab moves through the maze. And I'm using the arrow keys up, down, left, right to move my crab around. So I can move my crab around through the maze. And then if I touch the wall, let's go ahead and just do that. All right, I get sent back to the start. All right, so you're not allowed to cheat. So what I can do is take just a moment to run through the maze, and I'll try not to touch the wall. This part's the only tricky part right there. Watch out for that little corner. Try not to touch the wall. There we go. So now when you get to the end, you tell the user something happens. Something happens to let the user know that they've won the game, and then they can't play it anymore. Just like we talked about in dodgeball, I'm pushing up, down, left, right. They can't keep playing anymore. The game is over. Right? So we're going to write instructions that make all that happen. So I'm going to go ahead and click back, and we're going to talk about these different pieces that you need to have. Okay, so actually, where is it? Here we go. Maze challenge. There we are. So your project needs to have the following things. You're going to have a maze that's drawn on a backdrop image. You're going to pick the backdrop. You're going to draw the maze yourself. Then you're going to have a sprite that you pick that moves with the arrow keys. And getting your sprite to move with the arrow keys is a big part of what this project's all about. So we'll spend some time talking about that. Then, right, you have to make it so that if your sprite touches the walls of the maze, it gets sent back to the start. Send back to the start if it touches the wall. Okay, part 3. You need a way of letting the player know that they've completed the maze, just like we did in dodgeball. So you either, in this case, I played a sound and I had the sprite say something, and they couldn't play the game anymore. Now you could have changed the backdrop. There's other things that you could have done, but you definitely need to let the player know that the game is over, and you need a better title than Untitled. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and create a new project here. I've got Scratch Cat. Scratch Cat's going to be a fine sprite to run through the maze. I'm going to draw the maze myself, but we have to talk and think a little bit about color. So the way that this project is going to work is how's it going to know? How is the program going to know? It needs to test something. It needs to test something to see if you're touching the wall or not. And we're going to do that by color. Okay, so we need to pick a color. We need to pick a color for the wall. And then we're going to check, right? We'll write a program that says, hey, if Scratch Cat's touching that color, it's like you do a reset. You play a sound if you want, but we're going to teleport, basically go to the start, send the sprite back to the start if they're ever touching the wall. And then we're going to check if they're touching the wall over and over and over again. So, right, in order to pick the color that we're going to use, right, what we need to do is we need to pick a backdrop that doesn't have like every single dingle color of the rainbow in it. Because if all the colors of the world are already in that background, if your sprite touches that color while it's on the background, it's also going to teleport back to the start, and that's not what we want, right? So for example, if I was to pick a backdrop like this and I drew my maze all over here, right? These balloons are not just one color. There are actually many, many colors in here, going from a dark purple to a little bit lighter, a little bit lighter, a little bit lighter, a little bit lighter, a little bit lighter. Tons of different colors in here. And there's tons of pinks in here, tons of purples, tons of greens, tons of blues, so like pretty much all the different colors are in here somewhere. It might be tricky to even pick a color that's not in here anywhere. And whatever color I do pick for my walls, if that color is, if Scratchcat touches a balloon that's that color, it's also going to get sent back to the start. So I wouldn't pick a backdrop like this. Pick yourself a backdrop that doesn't have every single color in it. Maybe there's a color that's not in it or something like that. So, for example, we can, right? So there's a backdrop that has a ton of green in it, right? And when I look at this, I don't see, there's a few reds or something in here, but I'm not seeing any purples in this at all. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to draw, we're going to click on the backdrop over here and then go to backdrops. I'm going to draw on this backdrop, get my line tool right here. I'm going to go ahead and leave this as the color purple. I'm going to draw now purple lines to make my maze on here. Now I'm going to leave space between this. This is going to be kind of a little kid maze. You know what I mean? I'm not going to draw tons and tons of lines and make it a difficult maze to do. And one of the reasons why, that's actually enough, something like that. One of the reasons why is because if Scratchcat, you can already see Scratchcat right now doesn't even really fit through here very well. Scratchcat's whiskers are touching the wall, it's going to get teleported back to the beginning. Right? Scratchcat's ears touch, it's going to get teleported back. Right? I might have to shrink Scratchcat down a little bit even for this maze. But if you make your maze lines too close together, what ends up happening is kids have to just shrink their sprite, shrink it more and more and more and more and more to eventually where they just can barely even can't see their sprite anymore before it can finally make it through the maze. Right? So I realize that this maze is relatively easy, but that's not a problem because a big point of this project is learning how to control our sprite with the arrow keys. It's not necessarily to make the most impressive maze in the world, although yours can be more sophisticated than mine. I want to encourage you to do that if that's fun for you. Okay, so this is looking pretty good for our maze and our backdrop. Now what I want to do is have some kind of a goal. We can use Scratchcat as one of our sprites, so that's fine. I want to have another. I'm going to choose another sprite here and have it be something, I don't know, something that Scratchcat's gonna want to eat, right? So how about we can pick a taco? I don't know, Scratchcat likes tacos, right? And that taco seems like it's way too big to me, although having a kind of big taco is silly, and I think that would be okay. Doesn't need to be that as ridiculously big as it was. All right, so I think this is looking pretty good. Something like this is going to work. So what we need to do is, I'm going to go back to Scratchcat. We're going to write instructions for Scratchcat. Okay, and what we want to do is we want to check over and over and over. We're going to check if the user is pushing down. And if the user is pushing down, we're going to have the sprite move down. Okay, so we're going to check that over and over again. So when the green flag is checked, when the green flag is clicked, we're going to start doing something over and over and over again. What we're going to do is we're going to check if the user's pushing down. And if is an event block. Or no, I'm sorry, it's control. There we go. If, right? So when the green flag is clicked, forever and ever and ever, we're going to check if down key is pressed. And you can see the shape. See the shape of this hole that's in here? I need to find a block that is that shape to fit in there. And that's a hint. If you're not sure, if you lose track, what color shapes fit in there, right? This block doesn't fit in there, right? These purple ones don't fit in there. These ones don't fit in there, right? The ones that fit in here are these ones, the sensing blocks, right? And that's what's going to have to go in here. So we're going to say if what? If a certain key is pressed. Now in this case, it's not space. We want down arrow. So if down arrow is pressed, we're going to put that. You have to put the front of the block inside there. See, if I try to put the middle of the block in there, it never works. If I try to put my hand in there, it never works. I have to put the front of the block into the hole. It goes right in. So when the green flag is clicked, we're going to check over and over and over forever if key down arrow is pressed. And if it is, we want the Scratchcat to move in this direction. Right? So now back to math class. Do you remember? Up and down like this, is this the X direction or is this the Y direction? Because we need to know. Right? And if you're not sure, you can always take a peek over here. See this? The up and down arrows is Y, right? So we need to change the Y position of Scratch Cat. We want Scratch Cat's position to change down. We want Scratch Cat to move in the down direction, right? So do you remember if that one? That one is positive or negative? Do you remember? Right? The down direction. Down is the negative direction. It's the negative Y direction. So what we're going to do is, if key down arrow is pressed, then what are we going to do? It's a motion block. We're going to change Y. We're going to change Scratch Cat's Y position by some negative amount. Now this is a positive amount. I'm going to change this to negative. Make it negative 10. There we go. So now when I'm running this, if this is all glowing, now when I want to push down arrow one time, make Scratch Cat move down a little bit. Push it again, push it again. That's pretty good. Up doesn't do anything yet. We haven't written any code for that. Left and right doesn't do anything yet. We haven't written any code for that. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this for a second. What I'm going to do is I'm going to right click this whole if statement right here. I'm going to right click on the word if and duplicate the whole thing. Stick it back in there, right? This first one is for down arrow, and that's good to go. I'm going to change this one now for up, right? So it's going to be for up arrow, but I don't want to change Y by negative 10 if key up arrow is pressed. If key up arrow is pressed, I want to change Y by, right, positive 10. And there we go. So now if we run this, I can move Scratch Cat down and I can move Scratch Cat up with the arrow keys. I can't do left and right yet. We're going to need write code for that. So I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. Now I could just copy this, but I'm going to have to change, right, this direction. This was Y for up and down arrows. For left and right, it's going to need to be this one. Which one is that? Do you remember from math class? If you're not sure, this little arrow right here helps you remember. The arrows that go this way to this way are X, right? So we're going to need two more if blocks. So this if block's checking if up arrow is pressed. This one is checking if down arrow is pressed. I'm going to need two more. So let's get two more of those. Right? One for left and one for right. We're just going to go ahead and build them together at the same time. So if key left arrow is pressed, so that's a sensing block, whoops. If key, so we're going to need both of these, and this one's going to be, right, for if the right arrow is pressed, say, and the left. Could have done them in the other order, didn't matter, but we do need up, down, left, and right. We need all four. So if key right arrow is pressed, we need Scratch Cat to move that way, and that's in the X direction. Do you remember? To go that way, is that positive or negative? Do you remember from math class? To go that way is the positive direction on the number line. And so if key right arrow pressed, then we're going to change X. We're going to change it by a positive amount. And likewise, if key left arrow pressed, we're going to change, I can duplicate this block right here, we can change X by, to go that way, that's the negative X direction. So we're going to change by a negative amount. And I put all of these if blocks inside my forever loop because I need to keep checking if they pressed down, if they pushed up, if they pushed right, if they pushed left. Check it again, check it again. We need to keep checking all those over and over forever. So now I can move left, right, up, and down, and I can move Scratch Cat all around with the arrow keys. And that's pretty good. That's a major piece of our project that's completed now. All right. The main thing that's left really is that I'm not supposed to be able to cheat, so we're going to have to deal with touching the wall. That's going to be one more if block, one thing we need to check for the sprite. And we also need to check if touching the taco. Right, so we're going to need two more if blocks for those two more things that we want to check. So no problem, we'll just get ourselves some more if blocks. So here's one for if touching the wall. So if Scratch Cat's touching the wall, so right, we need this special shaped block again. Remember, that's a sensing block. If touching, there's a touching block right here. We used it in dodgeball. If touching what? The color purple, right? So I need the other touching block, right? This one right here, touching color. So if touching color, and that's the wrong color, okay? I don't want you to try to guess the color like this. You're gonna be wrong probably, or it's gonna be like impossible to get it perfectly right. What you can do is get this eyedropper color right here, and you can pick, it's a color picker, right? And so it can pick the exact color that you want, and I want this color right here. And that's the exact perfect color. So now if, this is instruction for Scratchcat, if touching color purple, then what are you supposed to do? Well, we can play a little sound. Let's get a sound, right? Let's play the sound, meow. And then we're supposed to go to teleport back to the beginning, which is right there. So I'll put Scratchcat there, go to the motion block, and then get my go-to block out. Now, every time I move Scratchcat, these numbers are updated automatically. Right, so you can get this block out and then type in your perfect numbers that you want. But what I like to do is put Scratchcat where I want them to go. These numbers update automatically, then get the block out. Now, it doesn't really matter what order this goes in. Do you want to play the sound and then teleport, or teleport and then play the sound? We just need to do both things. I'm going to go ahead and put that up there, and let's go ahead and try it out. So I can still move up, down, left, and right, but if I touch the wall, it's sent back to the beginning. Right? So I can't cheat anymore. Okay, then, right, as a programmer, I can still move Scratchcat wherever I want. The user won't be able to do what I just did. We need to add one last piece for when you touch the taco there. Right, so that's another if block. And I bet you could put that one together on your own, right? What's it going to need to say? If, just this one's just like dodgeball, right? If touching, and in this case, my sprite's name is Taco, so if touching Taco. And then what am I supposed to do? Right, so in this case, right, I don't want them to be able to play the game anymore. So just like we did in dodgeball, right, want to stop. In this case, we're going to stop the whole project. Everything is going to stop, right? Nobody's going to be able to do anything. Nothing's going to move. The arrow keys won't work because this forever loop will stop. And then I can also, it's fun to add something else. It's fun to add something else at the very end. And so I think for this one, let's add another backdrop. And this one's going to be one that I draw myself. And I think we'll just, let's see. Let's go ahead and convert it to bitmap, and then we'll use the paint bucket tool, and we'll just dump some color here. Ah, do you see what's happening? That's the color. That's the color that sends Scratchcat back to the start. So let's pick a different color for that. And then what we'll do is add some text in here that just says, we need a different color for the text, we won't be able to read it, that just says something like, you win, to let the user know that they've won and that the game is over. And then what's going on here? Okay, so I want to make this way bigger so that people can read it. Something like that. Right, and that's pretty good, but I do still need to, you'll remember, I need to write the instructions for when do we switch to these different backdrop themes, right? And having two different backdrops, I'm going to, right, we're not using balloons, we'll trash can that. So this is the one that's the maze. I'm going to rename it to maze. This is the one that's you win. I'm just going to rename it to you win. And then when I go back to write the code for Scratchcat, if touching Taco, we want to, it's under looks that we're going to switch the backdrop to you win. And this whole thing needs to also happen over and over and over again, but it's a separate check than these other if statements, right? So each one is a separate one. Sometimes my students accidentally put one check inside the other check. And that means you would have to check them both. Only if you're touching purple do you go inside here and do this stuff. And that's now when you check if you're touching Taco or not. We don't want to only check if we're touching the Taco if we're also touching purple. It's a totally separate check, so it can't be inside the other one, right? But they're all inside the forever loop because I want to all be checking them over and over and over again. A lot of times my students will also forget the forever loop. They'll do something like this. And then they'll run their project. Here, let's switch the backdrop back to the right one. That's something we'll have to initialize in a second. So a lot of times what my students will do is they'll forget that forever loop, and then they'll try to move, and they'll say, Mr. Borges, my Scratch isn't working. well, I wrote my program perfectly here and it just doesn't work. Something, I think the computer's broken or something, right? And I'm not making fun of them, but I'm trying to spare you that, right? I'm trying to spare you that experience, learn from their mistakes, right? The reason why Scratch can't remove right now is because this program is only going to check. This is only going to happen one time, all this stuff. One time at the beginning, check if you're pushing down. If you're not, check if you're pushing up. Check if you're pushing left, check if you're pushing right. And then that's it. The program's over. Right? We don't want to only check one time at the beginning if they're pushing down. We need to forever and ever and ever, always and forever, keep checking if they're pushing down. Right? And that's the idea. This isn't glowing. You have to start the project. Now that it's glowing, we're actually checking. Okay, so that's all pretty good. Let's check this at the end. Going to move Scratch Cat to the taco. I can't play anymore, so that's all working pretty great. So, right, ready to send this off to iTunes, right? And sell this app for $1 a piece and start getting reviewed by my customers and stuff like that. We're really not, right? What we need to do is we need to test everything at least one more time. And what you'll do is, if you try that, test everything one more time, you'll see, oh, wait a second, my program isn't working at all. And it's because I'm stuck on this you win screen, right? So what I need to do is initialize my conditions, and that's part of the reset. So what happens at the beginning, right after the green flag gets clicked, before we start doing other stuff, right here, the reset, the initial conditions, we need to set the backdrop back to the one we want it to be. We need to switch the backdrop back to maze. And that's what this thing called initializing your initial conditions are. You need to set up your initial conditions as a computer programmer. I always think of it like as a reset, but you're the one who's in charge of the reset. You need to make sure that it's working the way that it's supposed to work. All right, T. So go ahead then and switch backdrop to maze. And then we should be able to run this. Oh, you know what is going on? Scratch Cat's already touching the taco. Right? So every time I click the flag, Scratch Cat's like, I'm already touching the taco. It always bounces right back to you win all the time. Right? So if I move Scratch Cat a little bit away from here, see, it's not doing like that anymore. I can click the green flag. But, right, Scratch Cat's not resetting its position. Another thing I need to do at the beginning is I need to send Scratch Cat back to the beginning, and I need to decide where that is my own self. So I put Scratch Cat where I want them to start out, and then I get a motion block, a go-to block telling them to go there. All righty. There we go. So now Scratch Cat resets if they move there. We can test what happens if you win the game, and then make sure that reset is working correctly. So now we've checked all the different pieces and they're all there. So other things to do, we still need a better title than Untitled. Please make sure you always get yourself a better title than Untitled and pick a meaningful title that makes some sense. Then you're going to go to the project page and write some instructions in here. You don't have to write a whole essay, but I want you to always tell people how to play your game. So I'm going to use the arrow keys to move to the taco, so people know what they're doing. How does this project work? What is the objective of the project? What are you supposed to be doing? And then you're going to share your project. Until you've shared it, nobody else can see it. If you didn't have a share button, you need to raise your hand or send me a message if you're doing distance learning so that I can help you confirm your email so that you can share your project. Otherwise, I can't see it. You can't turn it in if I can't see it. All right, so there we go. Now to turn in your project, you're going to copy the URL here so that I have a link to your project. You're going to turn that in either Google Classroom or Canvas, whichever one we happen to be using this year. And I also want to encourage you to add this project to our La Contenta Studio for whatever year you're watching this project, right? If it's 2021 project studio, or if it's the 21-22 school year, or whichever school year it happens to be in the future. Alrighty, folks, so that's it for this one, right? That's your maze project. So I want you to go ahead and take a crack at making your own project like this, right? And you can make the maze a little bit more complicated than this, but don't go totally crazy, okay? Don't go totally crazy for this project. If you want to make a really, really sophisticated maze or whatever else, you can do that as another project. But one of the things I'm going to want to see is the maze actually beatable? Right? So it's one of the things we're going to start thinking about as game producers as we're creating games and stuff. You have to think about the Goldilocks zone. You guys know the story of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. We don't want the game to be too hard, because then people aren't going to want to play it. They're going to think, well, this is impossible. They're going to wander away. We don't want the game to be too easy, like a baby game or something else, because then people will beat it once and they'll never want to see it again, because it's just too easy, like a baby game. You want the games that you create to be kind of just right. That's this Goldilocks zone, and the just right zone. Right, so where it's challenging enough. Maybe it took a couple of tries, but you have confidence that it is beatable if you keep at it. Right, that's the interesting zone. It's going to keep people playing your games for the longest period of time also. Alrighty, folks, so that's it for this one. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.